watching Business World Live. I'm Dani Laurel. It's the start of a new trading week. Let's go straight to our top story. The country has received its first shipment of COVID-19 vaccines from Moderna, containing 249,600 doses. The delivery arrived at the NAIA Terminal 3 past 11 p.m. last night. 150,000 of the doses were procured by the government, while the remaining 99,600 were purchased by the private sector, led by listed ports operator ICTSI. Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. said Metro Manila will be prioritized for the allocation of Moderna jabs, while ICTSI said it may begin distributing its share of the doses to 300 companies today. A total of 20 million Moderna doses are expected to arrive this year. 13 million were purchased by the government, while 7 million shots were procured by the private sector.
Start with ICTSI and all the other big ones because they'll have a significant amount of pro rata share, but every single company will have a share of this batch, and we will start the inoculations as soon as possible.
Meanwhile, 1 million more Sinovac doses arrived in the Philippines this morning. To date, Sinovac has shipped 12 million doses to the Philippines since February, and this brings the country's total shots to over 17.45 million from 5 brands now: Sinovac, AstraZeneca, Sputnik V, Pfizer, and Moderna. The Philippines is back on the gray list of a global dirty money watchdog. This means the country will be subjected to increased monitoring to prove its progress against money laundering and terrorist financing. Paris-based Financial Action Task Force just released its gray list of countries that need to submit progress reports on its efforts to curb money laundering and other related illegal practices. This comes 16 years after the Philippines was removed from the blacklist back in February of 2005. The Philippines was last seen on this list back in 2000. This time, the Philippines joins Haiti, Malta, and South Sudan as the new re-additions to the list. However, the Anti-Money Laundering Council emphasized that the Philippines will not yet be subjected to countermeasures. AMLAC says it is only when the country fails to meet its deadlines and reporting action plans that other countries will be called on to impose countermeasures against the Philippines. Okay, well, here's hoping that FATF gray listing will not affect the foreign inflows, especially after finally seeing a reversal of that exodus from the foreign funds in the month of May. You can see on my terminal here. According to the Bangko Sentral, hot money re-entered the Philippines in the month of May. That's around $417 million. And this, of course, is a turnaround from what we saw of $1 billion in a net outflow in the same month of 2020. So a good reversal here. Plus, even in the month of April, we had a net outflow of around $374 million. So apart from what they've mentioned, of course, the reopening of the economy in May, we also did have the Monday IPO in the month of May. They raised around 49 billion pesos, the biggest ever debut in the Philippines ever. Now, let's take a step back and look at the equities globally. Just to note that global stocks had ended last week at a record high. That's as the anxiety over what the Fed was going to be doing, especially with the unwinding of the rates there, and tightening rather, and possible tightening, and that has been reversed there. The S&P 500 had its best week since the month of February. Financials and retail shares were beating the technology giants, which were of course the ones outperforming during the pandemic. But we do have Australia that's going to be closely watched today. That's after Sydney went into a 2-week lockdown to stem a resurgence of COVID-19. You can see that over in Australia. The S&P ASX 200 down by 0.4% as of the last reading. Now let's take a look at our opening. Down a touch, but nevertheless still above 6,900 levels here, down 0.2% this morning. Let's take a look at the leaders of the 6 minutes into trade. Metro Pacific up by 1.8%, followed by URC and RLC. AEV, however, down by 1 and 4 tenths of a percent, but its power arm, Aboitiz Power, up by 4 tenths of a percent. Now, this is a reversal of how Aboitiz Power had performed last week. I'll just pull out the 3 day chart for you guys so you can see, and we have more information on that issue with the plants over in Benguet. This, of course, after it had the National Commission on Indigenous Peoples said that the indigenous groups withdrew their consent for 3 hydroelectric plants which are run by Abortus Power, that is headcore in Benguet, in a dispute over the royalties. They had actually required Aboitiz Power to halt their operations there. Now, what is happening here? The indigenous groups revoked a memorandum of agreement which was signed in 2019 due to what they call highly disadvantageous conditions in the deal. One, for example, in a previous MOA, the tribes were supposed to receive 5 to 7 million pesos per year in terms of royalties. And right now, it's what Headcore is offering, according to them, is just around 500,000 pesos. Now, this, according to Headcore of Aboitiz, they believe that they have been compliant, and they will continue to actively reach out to the community for a gathering with the tribes. Now, after staying the course last week, do our equities still have room to run? Well, here to chat with us about this latest assessment, we have, of course, Ed Francisco, president of BDO Capital. Good morning, Ed, and welcome to the broadcast.
Good morning, Danny.
Sir Ed, some excitement here over the past couple of weeks, and we've managed to keep our heads above 6,900. Tell us, what's the general sentiment here in terms of volatility in the markets, especially after the Fed issue seems to have now been digested by investors?
Yeah. Well, and then the nice thing about the market is that it's really predominantly Filipinos. Right? So it shows you the support that we're getting. Volumes have not been as strong, but they're beginning to go up, right? Which is great, and that's why the index has been breaching 6.9 already. I think that's a very good sign. Sure, there's been hot money coming from one day, and then once in a while there is, but it's primarily local volumes. They're looking for a good investment, and I think they're beginning to feel, Danny, that because of all these vaccines coming in, the economies will reopen, our economy will reopen, and then it'll be revitalized, and it will redound to improve stock prices. So I think there's that building up, or that buzz building up.
So a lot of optimism indeed. Sir, what is keeping us from breaking the 7,000 level psychologically? What's the catalyst that you're really watching out for here, especially since, the cases have been at a 2 month low, you've got the vaccination rollout. What more needs to be done? And even the, possibly easing pa the restrictions in Metro Manila?
Yeah. No, you're right. I think if there's a formal reduction in our quarantine status, especially, and then the rest of the country improves, that really would be a good sign, right? Because at one point we were able to breathe well. Manila is doing well, but then Davao and the rest of the country is tumataas. Once we see it's continuously going down for everybody, that's really the sign we're looking for. Because at least as far as the business are concerned, we're seeing pickups already. I just visited some malls over the weekend, and I'm very happy to see the foot traffic improving, and consumption is there. Parang it's beginning to come back. Di ba? And then there's traffic already, so it's also a sign that people are going out, Danny.
Sir, how is the investment community pricing in the Delta variant? Is this something of concern? We've seen that, lockdowns yet again, risks in Europe na naman over the European summer. How big of an issue is this? And do you think that we will be much more prepared this time around?
Yeah, I think we will. We are prepared. Our vaccines, someone hopefully are protecting us from that. So we're at the stage where we just want everybody to get vaccinated. We're encouraging them. I think there's still some very small resistance in various sectors. So that's part of the education. Um, we are, and then I guess from a vaccine perspective, the fact that if there's a mix, there's not going to be the protection. It's already factored in the businesses. We've already seen the bottoms anyway, so we're ready for that slight cyclicality, the businesses at least. But at least they have variability already in their employment. They know when to shut down. They can work from home. So I think the Philippine firms are well prepared for more volatility, but
Mhm.
also because we've watched and learned from other countries, we should be prepared, and then we can come out of this very well.
Okay, so hopefully we have the tools that are needed now. Sir, let's talk about the Monde IPO very quickly here. Now trading at 15 pesos 68 centavos. Of course, good news for those that entered at 13 pesos and 10 centavos. Tell us, what does the IPO process tell you about the appetite of investors, both domestic and especially foreigners, in coming back into the markets, and how that colors the outlook for other equity raising?
Yeah. Imagine, Monday was the largest of, excess of a
Yes.
billion. And there was already strong local demand, but the buzz was more on the institutional talaga, di ba? The strong cornerstone support, which already was a
Mm-mm.
majority of the deal. So from the chupiteros, or not naman called chupiteros, but those who were hoping to make a quick buck, it
Yeah.
wasn't really there. I guess what I've always been telling people, the big IPOs, even Converge, di ba? It didn't do so well the first few days, but look, where is it now? It's also up maybe what 20%. It's done very well. Same with Monde. These are great names and great stories. It'll take longer for them to be moving quickly up because of their because they're really big already. But the
Mm-mm.
nice thing there, the seal of support really came from foreign, di ba? And then us locals naman, our seal of support has always been, especially in both of these, by using their internet, and then in Monde, buying Lucky Me, buying Nissin, di
Mm-mm.
ba? We've always been supporters of this, so it's great that they're being rewarded. Those who've invested will see at least that constant share price, hopefully continuously going up. But these are great stories, and I think what that is saying is, despite diba, the negative news on the country, because
Mm-mm.
our economy hasn't improved, why have these foreign companies invested in these great IPO stories? Because there really are good management, good stories, good companies here, and these companies had predominantly Philippine operations. They believe in what can be done in the Philippines. They believe in the upside. So tying locals, Ren, we've been supporting it through the stock market. We should be comfortable that the stock market, in a way, or the performance of these stocks, shows that there's really parang I guess the silver lining. Diba? Things will get better for us.
Okay, so it's really about the good management and the great products that they offer. Sir, can you say the same about the property sector right now with the REITs? Getting hotter and hotter by the day. Probably three have been announced na for the third quarter. Tell us, is that not going to be overcrowding a property market which has already seen quite some vacancies in terms of tenancy? Is this too much too soon, or is it actually something to be excited about that all of these streets will be coming online at the same time?
Yeah, no, it's something to be very excited about, Danny. Remember, even if all these REITs come out, Mega World is hopefully $500 million, the largest for the country. And then even with Robinsons and Philindes, when they come out, even if that's another $1 billion, there's
Mm-mm.
still that liquidity here. It will actually do well for the Philippine investors. Us who are just in currently in time deposits, we
Okay.
can get higher yielding assets and good assets here. And remember, these assets naman are not residential. Their assets are mainly industrial, or their BPOs and office, and these are more have been more resilient naman. So pinili rin ng mga real estate developers what to put into these REITs.
Yes, sir. Can you clarify that a little bit? Because
Okay?
some reports have said that the commercial was the one that is, having a difficult time, and then residential not necessarily because our remittances are still there. People do have some savings, and the first thing that they do is put it in non central business districts areas. But then we now have a BSP report that those residential property prices have slumped pala in the first quarter. We thought that would be the saving grace, and then now everyone's looking into REITs. Tell us what's going on here. What's on the mind of investors?
Okay. No, I guess in general, of course, the real estate market has been tested, right? So that's why the stock market prices of the real estate companies took a hit last year. They've been recovering, right? In terms of sales, yes, we've heard reports, especially in Manila, that I guess there's been some slowdown on condo sales for residential, right? On the commercial naman, of course, the malls have been closed, but they're picking up again. That's why foot traffic is important and sales have been picking up. And then the mall owners have been helping the tenants, with variable pay so that they can get off their feet. But that's picking up, so I'm happy with that. The industrial side naman, the office spaces, where the BPOs are, diba, that has continued. It has not gone down because in fact, that we suspect that will continue to go up. So when you hear Lito Tayag and the rest and SAPI, it's still going strong. So those are sectors that will continue to do well. So when you do REITs and then you select these REITs with, at least you already saw the low side of the commercial. Some of those with commercial, but those with the office and BPO, you've seen how strong they are, how loyal their clients are, and when we do REITs, we review their contracts, we interview the tenants, we know the history. So before we go bring it to the market, we're comfortable already that this will be steady paying, and that's good for the investor. So if you can make from a rate between 4.5% to 6.5%, and then remember, as an individual, you
Okay
only
na
get
yan.
10% tax. Yeah, 10% tax. If you're a corporate, it's 0% tax. That's a great
Okay.
return. Because if we believe anyway, these real estate companies are doing well and these REITs are great and they're secured effectively.
Okay, so it's actually taking away the higher risk assets and just keeping the more stable recurring revenues there. So as you mentioned, 4 to 6%, but sir, 4 to 6% return, not a bad deal,
Yes,
especially in these low interest rate environments. Thank you so much for those insights, Ed Francisco, president of BDO Capital.
thank you.
Checking in on the other headlines, we're keeping our eyes on the Agriculture Department claims that pork prices have stabilized in the past few weeks, signaling that the government's move to adjust tariffs is effective. DA Undersecretary William Medrano said retail prices of imported kasim and pige have stabilized at 250 pesos per kilo, while liempo has reportedly steadied at 290 pesos per kilo. But the Samahang Industriya ng Agrikultura or SINAG chairman Rosendo So insisted that lowering tariffs have not lowered the retail prices of pork. He added that increasing tariff rates will help local hog rate raisers better as they try to compete with the depressed prices of imported pork. Meanwhile, about 70% of the adjusted minimum access volume allocated under EO 133 will be admitted between July and October. That translates to about 140,000 metric tons of pork imports entering the market during that period. NLEX Corporation is planning to start the construction of its 2 billion peso Quezon City extension project this year. The construction of the expressway connecting Mindanao Avenue to the Quirino Highway Novaliches is expected to benefit commuters who are currently facing traffic gridlock along portions of the major road. This as the extension will provide an alternate route to the ports of Manila via NLEX Harbor Link all the way to the new Navotas interchange. NLEX says the new expressway will eventually be integrated into the future NLEX expansion to C5 near Katipunan. And that's a first look into the business day. Today's Monday, June 28, 2021. Catch Business World Live for the market close. It's at 3:15 p.m. today. I'm Danny Laurel. Mask on, wash hands, stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.